Howdy, howdy, everybody. I just started watching a video that Uncle Will did yesterday, and I'm not quite all the way through it, but I'm going to make this as a response to the video that he posted. And it's regarding Carl Smith. I gather his name is. I've seen a couple of different videos in the last few days, and I've been aware of Carl for a while.
Like I am a wolf, fucking undeniably. But the ones who think they are a wolf, they're not a wolf. They're the biggest sheep of all.
I found this statement very, very interesting. Carl states he's a wolf, but the ones who think they're wolves are the biggest sheep of all. Doesn't that collapse your argument right on top of itself? You're claiming you're a wolf. That's not a good thing to claim. That's number one. And number two, you're claiming you're a wolf, so you think you're a wolf, but the ones that think they're wolves are the biggest sheep of all. Would that not make you a sheep yourself? I have not paid close attention, so I'm going to share with everyone my perception of Carl, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'd like to come at this from a compassionate and constructive point of view, if I may. And I'm not going to tag Carl in this. I am going to tag my brother from another mother, Uncle Will, to hopefully open a dialogue, because there are people like Carl out there that are very, very confused right now. And my objective is to hopefully untangle some of that confusion, because the further down the road we get right now, the more confusing everything's going to be. And if folks lose their way and they're not able to tell the difference between real and fake, it's going to cost them. And so I highly encourage everyone who is capable of kind of processing this information to really think about what it is that I'm saying, if you will. From what little I have seen of Carl, number one, he appears determined to be told by Mr. Ryan Upchurch that he is quote unquote chosen, or a chosen one. Number two, Carl presents himself as someone with the attitude of, I know something you don't know, and then proceeds to bash people with whatever knowledge he thinks he's obtained, whether it's about God, Jesus, children, the Great Awakening. I've seen in a number of different areas where Carl has attempted to present himself as a prophet or a chosen one, and in my opinion, it's to elevate himself above another human being, which is going to be a key piece of information for Carl to really examine himself. So I have a few questions for Carl right off the bat. Carl, or anyone who is interested in kind of dissecting all of this. Carl seems fixated on being told by Mr. Ryan Upchurch that he's quote unquote chosen. What is that going to do, Carl? How is that going to help the world? How is that going to save the children that you keep speaking about? For you to be advised that you're quote chosen, and not only advised that you're chosen, but advised by another human being. Mr. Ryan is a very inspirational character, and he's very talented, and he's a very high profile figure, but he's also a flawed human being. What would give him the authority to tell you anything? And you see, that brings me to my next point. If you're seeking answers from another flawed human being to tell you whether you're chosen or not chosen, there's your answer right there, because any spiritual growth that takes place on this plane, in this realm, in this world, whatever you want to call it, is going to take place within your own heart. And if you're living within your own heart, you don't need to be told by another human being what you are or what you're not. You'll know who you are, and you'll know why you're here. And that would be my best suggestion to Carl and everyone, is to seek the answers within themselves. Because if you're seeking the title of quote unquote chosen one from a high profile human being, as much as I admire Mr. Ryan, he is a human being, and he's flawed. We're all flawed. We're here in human flesh for a reason, and there are some who have a bigger voice than others. So if you're seeking that title from another human being that you know will reach a large number of other human beings, what is it exactly that you're seeking, Carl? Are you seeking to be elevated as a quote chosen one and lifted up onto a pedestal by Mr. Ryan Upchurch because he has a vast audience that listen to him? If that is the case, my friend, you are seeking the admiration and adoration of other human beings. That's not good. The only audience you should ever seek the approval of is the Most High himself, because the little g gods of this world and the main little g god of this world will convince you inside and out that you need to seek the approval of human beings around you. And that little g god will also convince you that that little piece of information, that I know something you don't know piece of information, that little g God will convince you that that can become a weapon. Because with all due respect, Carl, the only thing that I've seen you do with this piece of valuable information is use it against other people in an attempt to emotionally manipulate them if they don't do what you say they should do. And the knowledge of what's happening with the little ones never was, is not, and never will be intended to be used as a weapon. Ever. And you can choose to continue to conduct yourself in the exact way that you have. That will be up to you. If you're using it to your advantage, to draw attention to yourself, that is a dark and twisty road. Whether you choose to turn back and come back to ground zero will be up to you. But make no mistake, it is not about us. It's about them. It always has been, and it always will be. You obviously have knowledge of the Great Awakening. You have knowledge of what's happening with the kids, and you're not doing anything constructive with it. You're just beating people over the head with the fact that that's going on. I think you even said Uncle Will had the devil inside of his head or in his heart. If your ambition is to save the children, please stop using them as a shield. Stop hiding behind their plight to get a leg up in an argument, because it's gross. Why don't you advise people what's happening? Why don't you advise people how it's happening? Why don't you advise people why they need all the little ones to begin with? Why don't you go take a trip in history and go back all the way to the beginning and figure out the depth and the source that demands the little ones? Why don't you figure those things out and share it with the world, instead of taking that little piece of information and clobbering people over the head with it? You want to help the little ones? Stop making it about you being called a chosen one. Stop beating people up with your idea of who Jesus is and who God is, and reel it back into your own heart. Reconnect to Jesus. Because when you do legit reconnect, you'll be able to re-examine everything and review how you've conducted yourself and the methods and tactics that you've tried to use to obtain something that only benefits you. Because let me let you in on a little secret. Everyone here right now who is witnessing what is happening in the world has been chosen to be here, okay? Everyone's a chosen one. Now, whether all the chosen ones choose to reconnect to JC and the Most High, El Padre, to become a participant to make this world a better place, it'll be up to us. And whatever job that has been chosen for us to accomplish by the Most High, we will know within our own heart the need as a human being to be elevated above other human beings is an elitist, authoritarian dictator mindset. And that mindset, that's not why we're here. It was never supposed to be that way. Because when you reel it in and you reconnect, you know who you are, and you don't need anybody else to tell you who you are. And you also realize that you don't have the authority to tell someone else who they are and who they're not either. Your life becomes about staying in your own lane and keeping your eyes on your own paper. And like Lil Me said, shout out Lil Me, cleaning up your own backyard. And I hope that makes sense. And look, I know to some, many of the things that I said may have been a little bit harsh. But if you've listened to my other videos and you know my background, you know how I grew up with my brothers and my cousins, and this was tame, trust me. But I do want to make something very, very clear. The only reason that I'm even making this video is because I wholeheartedly believe that Carl is a very lost soul. But I do see that there's a struggle and good within him. And I could be wrong. I have not personally seen where Carl has crossed lines that are so severe that there's just no coming back from. And if there's anyone out there that knows more than I do, give me a heads up. But from what I gather, according to his wife, he was fine for 18 years. And there was some catalyst that took him into this headspace that he's in right now, which is concerning. But there's obviously clear evidence that he lived a perfectly normal life for quite some time. And Carl, unlike many of the other YouTube petting animals that seem to scream and beg and cry and whine for attention, at the moment, I believe that there's something salvageable about Carl. And that's why I've made this video. It doesn't excuse some of the things he's said and done, but I still, at the moment, I'm holding out hope that somewhere within him, the real Carl can garner enough strength to fight back against whatever energies is causing this strife within himself. And I still hold out hope that he'll be able to return to the man that he was for his family. Maybe even a better version. And being a wife myself for many, many years, and with my husband since I was a teenager, been together a long, long time. I would be very bummed out if something happened to my husband and just out of the blue he turned into a completely different person. That would be harsh. So I'm holding out hope that things can turn around for their whole family. And so at the very least, I am hoping that this will get his attention and anyone else who may be going down that road as well. And I'm going to end this off with some clips that I had originally put in the very first video that I did. And it may be enough information for people to further dig into the depth and the source of demand and the true reason and origin of why the little ones are in jeopardy to begin with. I've always got to put this kind of disclaimer when I insert any of the clips from that very first video I did, because not only did I not know what I was doing, but I also recorded it in a hobby room that has a window AC unit that would be the equivalent to a 110-year-old man in, with COPD and on his last leg. So that's the loud noise in the background, and there's some hemming and hawing in my voice too, so pardon the audio, y'all. If everyone has a moment, please go on to the FBI website and look in the declassified section. Look up the finders. The finders. I'm not going to go into it too deep, but I'm going to summarize it. There's a case from 1987. Took place in the state of Florida. 2 well-dressed men were spotted with, I think it was 6 children. The kids were ranged in age from, I think, 2 or 3 to 12. They looked malnourished and disheveled and dirty. And it caught someone's attention who alerted the authorities. An investigation ensued. It led back to a location in Washington, D.C., where they obtained a large amount of material, disturbing material. Sorry, guys, needed a second. Yeah, they came back to Washington, D.C., where they obtained a lot of material, including an instruction manual on how to kidnap and transport children. And I can't remember whether it's in that document or a surrounding document. Dig into what agency stepped in and shut the entire investigation down and made it disappear from the media, never to be thought of. Because it was in fact the clowns in America that were paying and sponsoring these men and others to kidnap and transport children. Because you see, the Finders was a cult, a real cult. And I see a lot of talk about accusing of an entire group of people of being cult members, not having a mind of their own. It's slightly insulting. So if your desire is to expose a cult, please dig into the Finders and share that information with the public. That would actually be beneficial for people to learn of what they were up to. Because I see a lot of talk about that island as if that's the only island. And that was the only setup. The island with the guy that did or didn't commit suicide, whatever. I hope he's where he belongs. Were there any islands that surrounded that island? Like within traveling distance, reasonable traveling distance? Maybe say an island or 2 that were titled under the ownership of an agency, and if there were any islands, or maybe 1 or 2 of them sold off to the family member of a high-profile politician, perhaps. And if there are islands there and they can be traveled to and from, how would they do that? How would they travel back and forth? Speedboat, rowboat, sailboat, dinghy, snorkel and fins, or something more sophisticated like a submarine. It would be interesting to discover if there were submarine bays underneath the water at these quote-unquote islands, and the main island as well. It would be even more curious if a very close associate of the dude that did or didn't kill himself had a submarine pilot license. See, there's a lot more to it than just that island and just that one route that was set up by the finders, guys. It's so much bigger than that. And this has all been going on right in front of our faces. So while we're all fighting each other and pointing fingers at each other and screaming at each other and nobody's sitting down to really communicate, this was all going on in the background right in front of our faces. This can't ever happen again.